Hey guys, tonight we're doing something absurdly specific and frankly, delightfully uneventful. You're lying in a dark room while I guide you through the feathered folds of a Maya Nobles fan. Yes, a fan. Like, the kind you wave in front of your face when the weather is being disrespectful. But this fan is ceremonial, regal, and probably a bit itchy. Imagine plumes of iridescent green quetzal feathers layered like jungle scales, mounted onto a carved wooden handle that smells faintly of copal incense and centuries old secrets. Now, here's your reality check. You probably wouldn't have survived 5 minutes in the Maya elite's world. Between the humidity, jaguar threats, and surprise ritual bloodletting, your modern self might have passed out before even lifting the fan. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're sitting cross-legged on a woven mat inside a high stone chamber. It's not particularly spacious, and the air smells like limestone, chili oil, and prestige. You hold the fan delicately, not too tightly, or you'll bend the feathers, and not too loosely, or it'll flop like a sad bird. A palace attendant bows to you as they shuffle out of the room backwards. Apparently, you're important. Like, could ask for a pyramid and probably get one. Important. The fan in your hand is ridiculous. It's opulent in a way that dares you to question its usefulness. Quetzal feathers glisten emerald green, catching light from a high-slit window. Red macaw plumes spike from the edges, adding aggressive drama. The handle is carved with glyphs, swirls, and stylized animals, and is probably telling a story you can't read, but pretend to understand. You don't wave it. Not yet. Because you know the weight this object carries isn't just physical. It's political, spiritual, and social. Owning this fan means you're part of the ruling class, and everyone knows it. You don't have to wave it because people will already be fanning you. Still, you like the way it looks when you twirl it slowly, letting the light catch different feathers, like holding a bird that never flies away. Now, don't get ahead of yourself. You're not the king. Your nobility, maybe a lesser lord or high priest, someone allowed to speak in court and not be sacrificed on a whim. You've earned the fan or inherited it. Probably the latter. These things don't get handed out for participation trophies. Your grandfather may have waved it during a bloodletting ritual where he pretended not to wince as a stingray spine did its unholy business. Good times. What's wild is that this fan, useless to modern eyes, was once a symbol of cosmic order. The Maya believed in a layered universe, underworld, earthly realm, and the heavens above. A noble's fan, especially one with quetzal feathers, mirrored the movement of divine breath, the motion of celestial forces. You weren't just cooling yourself. You were echoing the god's wind. Mildly stressful responsibility for an accessory. Historians still argue whether some of these fans were used in actual rituals or reserved only for theater and status. Some fans are found buried with high-ranking individuals, the feathers remarkably preserved thanks to the humid tomb conditions. Others appear in mural paintings, where figures strike confident poses with them, mid-wave, mid-speech, or mid-sacrifice. And yes, that last one probably didn't end well. You rise to your feet, fan in hand, walking slowly toward the open courtyard. Outside, servants sprinkle crushed flowers and burned resins across the flagstones. A young scribe glances up at you, quickly averting his eyes. You catch your reflection in a polished obsidian mirror leaned against the wall. Your face calm, unreadable. Behind you, the fan flares out like a hollow overkill. Sure. But if you're going to be hot, you might as well be divinely ventilated. Here's the fringe bit no one talks about. Feather fans had their own keepers. That's right. In some Maya courts, a lower noble's job was literally to hold and maintain fans. cleaning them, repairing damage from humidity or insects, making sure the feathers stayed aligned and fluff-worthy. You weren't allowed to walk around with a scraggly fan. That would be like showing up to a board meeting in Crocs. Unforgivable. You step into the sunlight and instantly regret it. The heat slaps you like a humid tortilla. You raise the fan and give a gentle flick, more for the aesthetic than actual relief. But it helps, in a ceremonial kind of way. A passing merchant bows low as you glide past. You make a mental note to find out what he sells. Those jaguar hide sandals look comfy. A few children run by, chasing a hoop with sticks, laughing until they see you and freeze. You offer them a brief smile, noble, distant, just enough to show you're benevolent but not approachable. The fan helps with that. It creates space, separates you from the plebeians. Even when you're not using it, its presence says this person is not your peer. You pause at the edge of the plaza, beneath a massive stone carving of a bat, god, with a very judgmental expression. You raise the fan, holding it still as the breeze flows around it. You don't speak, the wind does. The feathers shiver, almost alive. Somewhere behind you, a conch shell blows. Your day is just beginning. You shift your grip on the fan, gently, like handling an easily offended bird, and raise it, just enough to shield your face from the punishing mid-morning glare. The plaza stones beneath your sandals are warm already, and you can feel the heat climbing your calves like a smug jungle vine. Around you, the city hums with the business of empire. People barter, chant, grind maze, gossip, and occasionally glance your way because you, with your fan, are worth noticing. Here's where things get curious. See, this feathered beauty in your hand? It's not just a fancy air mover. It's a multifunctional tool, a kind of Swiss Army fan, if you will, minus the corkscrew, and with a lot more flair. You use it to swat away insects, of course. That's its day job, but in a pinch, it becomes a signal device, a status amplifier, a silent communicator, kind of like an ancient version of posting a vague social media status and watching people panic, interpret. Say you're in court, Maya court, not the orange jumpsuit kind, and you want to signal support for a speaker without interrupting the sacred silence. A slow wave of your fan, held at chest height and fluttered twice, might say, "Cherry on, brave poet, I support your land claim." But a quick side flick, that's the equivalent of an eye roll, and everyone sees it. Passive, aggressive, and glorious. Historians still argue whether standardized fan gestures existed across the whole Maya world or varied by region. Some glyphs hint at specific motions tied to royal etiquette, while others leave things delightfully ambiguous. Classic scholarly chaos. But there's no doubt fans were used as more than decorations. Mural scenes show nobles gesturing with fans during intense dialogues. Fans angled up for proclamation, held close for listening, and spun when things got spicy. You walk slowly through the central market now, pretending not to notice how your presence clears a path. A few commoners bow. Others just stop talking mid-sentence. It's not fear, exactly. It's protocol. When someone holding a fan like yours enters a space, that space becomes temporarily sacred, or at least moderately important. Even if you're just browsing for a new obsidian toothpick case. You stop at a stall where a woman sells rolled tamales wrapped in banana leaves. The smell is unreal. Your stomach growls, undignified, and the vendor laughs nervously before offering you the biggest one free of charge. You accept it with a solemn nod, fan held at heart level, which might mean, "Thank you," or "I shall remember your kindness in the afterlife." Either way, she beams. As you eat, slowly and with ceremonial dignity, because nobility never rushes, you keep the fan raised. It shades your face, hides your chewing, and subtly waves away the smoke from a nearby incense burner. You are the picture of elegance. A little hungry, a little overheated, but elegant. Here's a tidbit you didn't expect: the fan was also used in diplomatic negotiations. Picture this. Two rival nobles sit across a carved limestone table, neither willing to break the silence. Their aides fidget. The incense burns down. Then, one of them raises a fan and points the feathers just slightly toward the other. Not a word is spoken, but the message is clear. I acknowledge you. Cue collective sighs of relief, tense shoulders unclench. Someone spills cacao in excitement. The versatility of the fan didn't stop at diplomacy. Love letters, fan flick, curses, fan twirl, secret rendezvous in the jungle. Tap the fan against your sandal twice, wait for the owl call, then proceed. It was high drama, low effort. Children imitate you as you pass now. One mimics your fan wave and trips over a chicken. His friends dissolve into giggles, while his mother scolds him in rapid, fire syllables. You allow yourself a tiny smile. It's not every day someone gets fan, slapstick in your honor. Up ahead, the steps to the temple complex loom. You're not in the mood for the full climb today. It's more of a wave from the bottom and make eye contact with a god kind of vibe. You stop before the first step, raise your fan high, and make a single circular motion. The nearby priests nod solemnly. Message received. And here's the last odd function of this particular fan. It works as a memory anchor. You've seen elders use fans like mnemonic devices, every feather representing a family name, a tribute amount, or a moon cycle. Some fans are even marked subtly with dyes or beads to help remember oral histories. One elder you knew used his to track a dead ode in cacao beans for over 30 years. That fan outlived most of the borrowers. So no, it's not just decoration, and it's definitely not just a tool for dramatic exits. Though, let's be honest, nothing beats a slow turn, one final wave, and disappearing behind a curtain of jade beads. A priest calls your name from across the square, beckoning you toward the council hall. Duty calls. You tuck the fan under your arm, the feathers trembling slightly as you move. Whatever comes next. Judgment, celebration, or another endless debate about tribute grain quotas. You're ready. Because with this fan, you're not just a person, you're a symbol. A little ridiculous, yes, but respected. You're back in the shade now, nestled beneath a high ceilinged portico, supported by pillars carved with jaguar-headed gods. The plaza behind you is a shimmer of heat and movement, but here, in this cool corridor, it's just you, your thoughts, and a feathered fan so luxurious, it would make a peacock blush and rethink its career choices. You hold it delicately in both hands now, letting the air flow through the long green feathers. You can't help but admire how each quetzal plume flutters just enough to hint at flight. And that's where the story gets wilder than a howler monkey on fermented fruit. Because these feathers, not only are they rare, they're borderline sacred. The quetzal bird is a diva of the Mesoamerican cloud forest. It's elusive, impossibly vibrant, and fully committed to drama. You don't hunt quetzals to kill. Oh, no. That would be sacrilegious. The Maya believed quetzals were messengers from the gods, maybe even small bits of sky-given feathers. Killing one. That's like drop, kicking a rainbow, completely frowned upon. So how did your fan get this fabulous? Enter the feather harvesters, specialists who climbed into the upper reaches of the rainforest canopy, sometimes with blowguns, other times with nothing but a net and a prayer. They'd trap the bird, gently pluck 2 or 3 tail feathers, never more, and release it, hopefully unharmed and only slightly offended. Then they'd climb down, feathers clenched in their teeth, and walk for miles back to court with the goods. Feathers that might end up fluttering in your hand. Historians still argue whether these harvesting trips were ritualized, with chants and offerings, or just dangerous freelance gigs. Some believe the harvesters were part shaman, performing spiritual preparations before even stepping into the jungle. Others suggest they were just really good at climbing trees and dodging snakes. Either way, no one ever wanted the job during rainy season. That's when the trees got slick and the mosquitoes began treating humans like open buffets. And then there were the parrots. Yes, parrots. Less exclusive than the quetzal, but equally noisy and surprisingly judgmental. Their feathers, vivid reds, blues, and yellows, were also used in your fan. The macaw feathers at the edges, probably bartered from lowland traders who walked barefoot for weeks just to reach the city. It's possible your fan contains a tiny piece of a parrot that screamed at someone in a completely different language 3 provinces away. In the weaving huts, feathers were sorted, cleaned with fine plant oils, and laid out in sacred patterns. Your fan likely took weeks to assemble. The base might be palm frond fibers wrapped tight around a thin cedar spine. Tiny obsidian chips are embedded along the handle, not just for sparkle, but possibly as a quiet form of ritual protection. Obsidian is volcanic glass, and in Maya culture, it links to the underworld, to birth and death, and to the power of reflection. So yes, your fan might also ward off demons, or at least jealous nobles. The more you look at it, the more you realize the fan isn't just a thing. It's a map of Mesoamerican trade, belief, ecology, and labor. Every feather is a thread in a web that stretches across rainforest and mountaintop, temple, and marketplace. You try not to feel guilty, but let's be honest. Someone probably lost sleep making this for you, and here you are, using it mostly to keep your cheek dry. But it's not your fault you're noble. You were born into it, just like you were born into a world where feather value was literally measured. Quetzal feathers were worth more than jade, more than gold, more than almost anything that didn't walk or bleed. Some merchants even used feathers as currency, bundling them like miniature treasure rolls. Your fan? It's basically a wallet full of sky money. Here's a fringe fact. Some Maya poets referred to feathered fans as wind tongues. That's poetic, sure, but also practical. When waved just right, the fan emits a soft fwup sound, like a breath or a whisper. In ritual storytelling, that sound was said to represent divine speech, the voice of gods rustling through trees. You try it now, just once. Fwup. You feel slightly ridiculous but also oddly powerful. You walk slowly toward the archives, a room carved deep into the limestone, filled with bark, paper codices, and jade styluses. You're not here to read. You're here to meet a feather keeper. She's old, wrinkled like a dried chili, and sharper than the obsidian edge on your neighbor's passive, aggressive smile. She sees your fan and grunts approvingly. That's a good one, she says. Smells like the highlands. You blink. The highlands. You thought your feathers came from the lowland jungles. She plucks one gently from the edge, just testing, not stealing, and sniffs it like fine wine. You've got cloudbird and valley parrot in here. Someone mixed traditions. She nods. Expensive. Probably smuggled through 3 border towns and 1 moody river god. You try not to look impressed. I just use it to keep the sun out of my eyes. She snorts. Typical noble. You leave the archive room with a renewed respect for the weird, tangled journey that led to your fan. From cloud forest nests to elite temples, from whispered trade deals to high priest blessings, this humble accessory has done more traveling than some people do in a lifetime. As you return to the palace, fan held just a little higher now, you pass a young artisan threading dyed feathers into a new headdress. He glances at your fan, then quickly looks away. You wonder if he recognizes his own handiwork. You wonder if anyone ever really sees the fan, or just the person who gets to hold it. The palace corridor darkens slightly as a cloud slides over the sun, and you feel the temperature drop by a whisper. You adjust your grip on the fan, not for cooling but for presence, because now you're stepping into one of the most sacred spaces in the city, the Featherwork Chamber. You've seen it before, but every time feels like entering a shrine made entirely of color, patience, and wildly specific expectations. Inside, the air is thick with gluey resins, ground dyes, and the hush of artisans at work. You move carefully, your sandals making soft thuds on smooth stone. Rows of feather bundles hang from ceiling racks, sorted by species, hue, and this is real, emotional tone. Yes, the Maya had a thing for chromatic emotion. Crimson for rage, turquoise for divine clarity, lime green for fertility. Somewhere in here, your fan was born. You stop beside one of the work tables, where a aged artisan threads tiny blue feathers into a ceremonial collar. The plumes are so small you can barely see the barbs, and yet she moves with such precision, it's like watching a spider do embroidery. She doesn't look up. But you know she's clocked your fan, and here's where things get tricky. Making a fan isn't just grab feathers, glue to stick done. No, this is sacred work. Each part of the fan was created in a ritual sequence. First, the feathers had to be purified, usually with smoke and a chant so old even the priests mumble through half of it. Then, the artisans applied special glues made from orchid sap or fish scales, which dried clear and sticky enough to hold in jungle humidity. The framework was often a split cane or cedar wood base, polished so smooth it felt like jade. The whole assembly was done in near silence. Some workshops even banned speech during feather laying, believing the wrong words might offend the spirit of the bird or invite chaos into the pattern. You, being a noble, were obviously never allowed to help, but you watched once as a child. You remember a master artisan sneezing mid-glue and nearly ruining an entire peacock fan. The silence that followed was so heavy it could have crushed a pyramid. Historians still argue whether each feather type had specific magical properties, like one to ward off drought, another to protect against betrayal. Some codices suggest this, others seem to contradict it. The truth may lie in oral traditions now lost, or just buried under a mountain of metaphor and ceremonial vagueness. Classic Maya mystery. It's like they deliberately wrote half their instructions in riddle format. You step closer to a drying rack, eyeing a nearly finished fan. This one is built around a central arc of heron plumes, delicate and ghostly white, with jaguar fur trim along the base. Extra. Even for royalty. You reach out, pause, then draw your hand back. Touching someone else's progress fan. It's like licking someone's birthday cake. Even nobles don't get a pass. A quiet voice drifts in behind you. You've never really seen yours, have you? It's the old artisan again? The same one who diagnosed your highland feathers. She walks over and gently lifts your fan from your hand, turning it over to expose the side you never look at. The underside is plain wood, yes, but inked in fine strokes with glyphs too small to notice in sunlight. You blink. What does it say? She squints. Something about divine breath and a chicken. No, wait. Sacrifice. She chuckles. Glyphs are tricky. Could also mean this breeze is sacred, or used by someone with soft hands. You laugh, despite yourself. Here's a tidbit that never made it into most textbooks. Artisans sometimes added personal touches to fans without telling their noble recipients. A bead here, a hidden symbol there, sometimes even a miniature curse against anyone who stole their work. Not evil curses, more like a long-term itch or an uncanny tendency to misplace things. The artisan code. You thank her quietly and take your fan back, feeling its weight differently now. It's not just a tool or symbol. It's a collaboration between bird and human, nature and ritual, craft and ego. You wonder how many hands it passed through before arriving in yours. 10, 20, more. Each one adding a layer of intention that now lives in every swish as you leave the chamber. The air feels heavier, like it's holding its breath. You step into the light again, your feet sliding down the smooth stone incline toward the royal courtroom. It's a formal day today. Not trial level serious, but close. A noble from a neighboring state has arrived, and you'll be observing the negotiations. As you approach the archway, an attendant bows and gestures you forward. Inside, the room is filled with quiet tension. Nobles in embroidered tunics line the benches, their fans closed and resting against their chests. You take your place, matching their posture, and do the same. To open your fan prematurely would be a breach of etiquette, like showing up to a dinner party, and immediately reaching for the host's dessert. Once the chief priest enters, head glowing with shell beads and enough incense to fog a caldera, the room exhales. Fans open. foot. In unison, yours among them. A slow ripple of plumage spreads across the court like a tropical breeze made visible. And just like that, the courtroom drama begins. You don't speak. You're not meant to. This isn't your trial, nor your negotiation. You're an honored observer. Important enough to be seen. Not required enough to be blamed if things go south. Which is good, because from the look on the visiting noble's face, things are already tipping toward awkward family dinner with legal consequences. You hold your fan just below your chin, angled to show the macaw feathers best. It's part shade, part shield, part poker face. Across from you, the visiting noble waves his own, smaller fan. It's decent, maybe 6 feathers, all green, none glowing like yours. A clear indicator. He's wealthy, but not your level of wealthy. The room notices. The chief priest, perched atop a carved stone platform, begins to speak. His voice is low and rhythmic, each word spaced like a drum beat. He recounts the terms of the maize tribute agreement made 2 cycles ago, invoking ancestors, the rain god Chak, and at one point, a very angry crocodile. You don't interrupt. You just watch, fan held perfectly still, feathers trembling with the room's subtle shifts. Then it happens. The visiting noble raises his fan and flaps it once. Not slowly, not respectfully. A sharp flick. Oh dear. That flick in this room, during this speech. It's the courtroom equivalent of a cough mixed with a sigh mixed with a sarcastic eyebrow raise. Several heads turn. The chief priest pauses, eyes narrowing just a smidge. Even the incense smoke seems to hang heavier, as if offended. You do nothing. You are grace incarnate. But inside, you're very much enjoying this. Historians still debate whether courtroom fan gestures followed an agreed upon system across Maya regions or evolved locally. Some murals suggest formalized fan codes, specific flicks and swirls meaning objection, support, or I'd like a snack break. Others imply fan gestures were more interpretive, art, drama, jazz hands with feathers. Whatever the case, your fan is now a tool of judgment. You twirl it once, very subtly, like the breeze just caught it. Enough to remind everyone watching that you saw what happened, that you are paying attention. The visiting noble shifts slightly. Good. Let him sweat a little. The courtroom drama unfolds like a particularly tense ball game without a ball. Every word matters. Every feather tremble gets noticed. At one point, a local official stumbles in his testimony, and his fan droops to the floor. The room gasps. He scrambles to recover both his words and his fan, but the damage is done. Later, people will say the fan lost its spirit, a phrase that will haunt him during next year's promotions. You remain still, observing, cataloging, learning. You remember your mentor once told you, a noble who fans too often speaks too soon. She'd been right about most things, except that time she tried to predict a lunar eclipse and ended up covered in cold cacao for public humility. The chief priest's voice rises. He declares the maize quotas unjust, invoking a celestial calendar cycle, a recently fallen star, and the misaligned behavior of the visiting noble's city. You sense the tide turning. Your fan sways just a little, as if catching prophetic wind. Then the priest pauses, looks directly at you. Your heart skips. He asks, not commands, not pleads, but asks for your opinion, as if your fan has already spoken, and now your mouth must catch up. You rise slowly. There's no script, no pre-approved statement. Just your instincts and a decade of observing ceremonial nonsense until it finally started making sense. You walk to the center of the room, your fan held chest high. The feathers glow softly in the light filtering down from the high sun slit. You do not speak yet. First, you raise the fan, make a slow circular sweep, and then let it fall to your side, symbolic reset. Start fresh. Then, gently you speak. When the feathers of a fan point in opposite directions, we look not at the fan, but the hand that holds it. It's not direct. It doesn't need to be. The visiting noble blinks, clearly unsure if he's just been insulted. The priest nods. Your local colleagues try not to smirk. You've said everything, and nothing at once. Classic noble maneuver. Here's your quirky fringe moment: courtroom fans were sometimes treated as oracles. If a fan dropped unexpectedly during testimony, it could be taken as a divine veto. If a feather fell out, it was said the spirits had plucked it in protest. And if two fans touched accidentally during a heated exchange, well, then it was war. Or at least an awkward week at the ceremonial pool. You return to your seat. The matter is tabled, for now, and the court breaks for food. Outside, platters of tamales and salted fish await, along with pitchers of cool cacao. Your fan, now resting across your lap, seems heavier somehow, not in weight. In consequence, you step outside, letting the sunlight return to your face. Around you, the city continues, unbothered by noble debates, ceremonial judgments, and feathered metaphors. Children still chase birds. Merchants still haggle. Priests still pretend to know exactly what the stars meant when they twitched last month. You fan yourself once, slowly, luxuriously. And for a moment, just one, you're not a symbol. You're not a gesture. You're just a person with a really nice fan and a vague craving for roasted plantains. It's festival day, and the entire city pulses like a drumbeat, hot, bright, and loud in all the ways that make you both proud and slightly concerned for your eardrums. You step outside, and the sun hits you like a divine frying pan. Your fan, now freshly brushed and blessed, springs open with a practiced flick. Ah, shade, style, and status, all in one ridiculous flourish. Everywhere you look, people are preparing. Women in embroidered hooples arrange marigolds along temple paths. Boys with flutes scamper between vendor stalls, half dressed, half late. Priests stand dramatically still, trying to look ethereal, while discreetly sipping water behind the incense burners. Even the city's dogs seem more alert, tails twitching in rhythm with the drums. You, of course, are part of the parade, not leading it. Leave that to the high priest in his enormous feather cloak that looks like it lost a fight with a tropical storm. But you are important. You are among the nobility who walk the sacred loop around the plaza, fanning slowly, rhythmically, like you're personally responsible for keeping the gods cool. Your jaguar pelt wrap scratches at your ankles, and your beaded collar weighs more than any piece of jewelry reasonably should. But your fan, light as a breeze. Well, mostly. The obsidian chips sparkle in the sun, and you can feel every eye on it as you pass. Festival fans, unlike their courtroom cousins, are made to dazzle. The feathers on yours have been refreshed with fresh dye, vibrant cobalt at the base, fading into emerald, then gold at the tips. The entire thing looks like it belongs to a bird that would sue you for mispronouncing its name. You love it. You join the procession, flanked by two lesser nobles who keep glancing sideways to compare fans. Yours is clearly superior. One of them gives it a tiny shake, trying to fluff it. Pathetic. You give yours a leisurely twirl, just to emphasize the difference. Subtle pettiness is still pettiness. As you walk, the music swells. Turtle shell drums, reed flutes. Someone strikes a large log with carved notches, each beat echoing off the stone facades. You keep time with your fan, every third step, a small wave. It's ceremonial, yes, but also practical. You're sweating. A lot. Historians still argue over how much of these festivals were genuinely religious and how much were, frankly, excuses to show off. There's plenty of evidence for both. Inscriptions praise the gods, yes, but also spend entire paragraphs describing who wore what, who stumbled on the temple steps, and which noble's fan accidentally caught fire from a rogue incense ember. It's part worship, part gossip column. A group of dancers passes you, spinning in wide arcs, their bodies painted with blue spirals and yellow jaguar spots. One brushes against you, nearly knocking your fan. You recover gracefully, mostly. The feathers tremble but stay aligned. Crisis averted. You arrive at the main altar, where offerings of maize, cacao, and obsidian shards are being piled high. The high priest climbs the steps, arms raised, cloak flapping dramatically. He says something in ritual tongue, part chant, part riddle, part weather forecast. You stand at the ready, fan held above your head. This is the moment. He raises his arms. The music pauses. You wave just once. A grand, slow arc that fans not just yourself, but the gods above. Others follow. Fans bloom across the platform like feathered sea creatures. The audience sighs, as if a breeze has passed through the whole city. This is the sacred wind, or at least the sacred illusion of it. You don't know if it actually pleases the gods, but it certainly pleases the people. And maybe that's enough. Quirky detail for you, some nobles used to sprinkle crushed jade dust into their fans before big events. As they waved them, tiny green sparkles would drift through the air dramatic. Mesmerizing. Utterly impractical. You tried it once. It got in your eye, and you couldn't see for 3 days. Never again. The ceremony continues. People cheer. Birds scatter from the rooftops. Someone starts throwing flower petals, and someone else joins in with cacao beans. You shield your face. This is not your first piddle-based incident, and smile serenely. After the formal loop is complete, you step down into the plaza. It's time for mingling, feasting, and the careful practice of not appearing to judge anyone's outfit, while absolutely judging everyone's outfit. Nobles greet each other with fan flicks and nods. Servants scurry to bring cool drinks and dried fruit. Somewhere, a flute solo is going entirely off script. You sip chilled honey water and nod politely at a passing merchant lord. His fan is huge but clearly store-bought. You give him the tiniest smile, the universal noble sign for nice try. He bows a little too low. You win. Later, you sit beneath a painted archway, watching the dancers and musicians swirl across the plaza. Your fan rests against your knee, feathers slightly bent from all the waving. You smooth them out gently, one by one. It's not just a tool, it's a partner in ceremony, in politics, in pride. And as the sun begins to lower, painting the city in amber and shadow, you know the day was a success. Not because the gods were pleased. Not because the maize offerings were accepted, but because your fan remained intact, elegant, and inviolable. Which, in noble terms, is divine approval enough. The sun has dipped just far enough to cast long golden shadows across the plaza, softening everything into a kind of romantic blur. The heat, once a tyrant, has mellowed into something almost gentle. You sit on a stone bench beneath a flowering tree, pretending to fan yourself idly. But let's be honest, this isn't about cooling off. Your fan rests in your lap, but your eyes are busy. You scan the crowd casually, looking for them. You know who? The merchant's second child from the Western District, the one with the laugh like hollow bamboo, and cheekbones that could cut obsidian. They're here somewhere. They always are on festival nights. The feathered fan, it turns out, is also the ancient world's version of texting. Flirtation without words. A coded language of glances, gestures, and just the right number of fan twitches to say, yes, I noticed you. No, I won't admit it aloud. In this game. Oh, you're fluent. Historians still argue whether fan flirting was a structured practice or more of a cultural meme. Widely understood, never officially taught. Some carvings seem to suggest systems left, hand flick for, come over, slow wave to signal, interested but watched, and my personal favorite, the closed fan tap on the thigh, which may or may not mean, meet me behind the maze stalls in 5 minutes. Tonight, you're going for subtle, a slow wave every time you laugh, a small arc when someone speaks too loudly, every motion calibrated to say, I am entirely above this nonsense. Unless you're paying very close attention, you sip a cool drink from a painted gourd, and finally spot them. Across the plaza, chatting with a cousin, pretending not to be looking at you while very much looking at you. Their fan is smaller than yours, simple, mostly red feathers, maybe cardinal or parrot. They lift it to their lips, hold it there, then lower it slowly. A message. You blink. Was that the signal for, let's walk? Or, I think your cousin insulted me. Hard to say. Fan language is full of nuance. In petty revenge, you make your move. A graceful stand, fan in left hand, Tip just brushing your collarbone. You don't look their way directly. Instead, you walk past a group of drummers, loop wide, and settle beside a shallow fountain filled with floating flowers. You sit. Wait. Wave the fan once. They arrive 2 minutes later. You don't speak immediately. Instead, you pretend to adjust your fan, fingers smoothing the feathers like they're misbehaving. They sit beside you, just close enough for elbows to almost touch. And there it is. That hush. That charged stillness where neither of you says what you're thinking, but both of you know. The fan dips. They match it. Yours circles once. Theirs flicks twice. If this were written down, it would sound absurd, like a dance choreographed by nervous birds. But in the moment, it feels ancient and electric. Quirky fact. In some regions, lovers exchanged feather tokens clipped from personal fans, like romantic trading cards, but fluffier. You once heard about a noble who kept a bundle of 10 different feathers under their mattress, one from each conquest. That story, of course, is considered apocryphal by scholars, which means definitely true, but not in the respectable scrolls. You lean back, letting your fan rest across your lap again. Your companion laughs at something a child yells nearby. The sound is warm. You try not to smile, fail miserably, then cover it with a long, theatrical wave of the fan. Smooth. Very smooth. They turn to you and lift their fan between you. A curtain of feathers. Half screen, half invitation. You both lean in just enough to hear the whispers. Nothing scandalous. Yet, just small nothings about the festival, the food, the way the high priest tripped earlier during the May's blessing. But the fans make it feel conspiratorial, sacred. Like two birds nesting inside a joke no one else can see. You remember something Odds an elder once told you that two fans, waved in sync, could create a spiritual bridge between people. You're not sure if that's literal or poetic. But right now, the rhythm between your gestures feels shared, like something ancient is remembering itself through you. The sun kisses the edge of the mountains. Dancers light torches. The plaza glows amber and gold. You rise again, companion beside you, and begin walking slowly through the festival crowd. Your fans create a little wind, tunnel of peace between you, a mobile sanctuary in the heat and noise. Other nobles notice, they nod. A few smile. One glares. You ignore them all. Historians may never decode the full grammar of fan flirtation. But in this moment, with each whispered flick and feathered swirl, you feel completely understood, and really, what more could anyone want? The festival is fading now, slipping gently into night. The torches burn low and the music slows to a hum. You feel more than here. You're back inside the temple complex, this time deep in the eastern corridor reserved for rituals. Not the big flashy ones with drums and masks. These are quieter, older. The kind where incense does more talking than people do. You hold your fan again, but not for flirtation or flair this time. This is the serious stuff. The fan's now a tool of spirit, smoke, and silence. You enter the chamber with a deliberate pace, bare feet brushing the cool stone floor. The air is thick with copal resin, curling in ghostly loops around carved pillars and statues too old to name. A priest stands beside a low altar, his robe simple, but inked with symbols that shimmer in firelight. He nods to you without words. You return the nod, then raise your fan slowly, offering it forward. He takes it like a sacred object, 'cause it is, and places it carefully on the altar. For the next part, you watch. Here's something the public rarely gets to see: the fan used as a windmaker for spirits. The priest lights a small basin of incense and begins chanting. Not loudly, not theatrically. It's more like he's whispering to someone just out of sight. Every few phrases, he picks up your fan and waves it once, wafting the smoke deliberately toward the 4 cardinal directions. This isn't for show. In the Maya worldview, breath and smoke are bridges between the earthly and the divine. The fan isn't dispersing the incense, it's guiding it, shaping it, like turning smoke into language. It's part of what they call decay, the sacred wind, thought to carry messages between gods and mortals. It's why some glyphs show gods with fans in hand, not as accessories but as extensions of their will. You kneel, hands resting on your thighs, watching the movements. The fan lifts again. The priest's hand makes a slow circle, then a sharp flick toward the ground. That one's for the underworld. You shiver, though the room is warm. Historians still debate whether these rituals were for invoking deities or honoring ancestors. Some say the smoke was meant to feed spirits. Others believe it was like spiritual Morse code. The reality might be both, or neither. Rituals, like feather fans, don't always give up their secrets easily. After the smoke comes the silence. The priest places your fan beside a small bowl of water and steps back. You both wait. It's not about expecting an answer. It's about showing you're willing to listen. You notice how the feathers move even without wind, swaying gently as if stirred by unseen breath. Could be the heat, or maybe something more. You've seen this before. A fan placed in a sealed room, feathers trembling, science, spirits. You're not in the mood to argue semantics tonight. Then comes the second use purification. The priest dips a bundle of herbs into the water, brushes it lightly across the fan's spine, then flicks droplets into the air. One lands on your cheek. Cold, sharp, refreshing. He says a word you don't catch. You don't need to. The meaning settles in your bones like warmth. And now the awkward bit. You are expected to perform. Nothing dramatic, just a short ritual reenactment for the local temple record. Keeper, who's sitting discreetly behind a carved column, stylus in hand, waiting to write down whether your wrist movements were sufficiently reverent. No pressure. You take the fan. You rise. You mimic the priest's earlier motions, sweeping the incense 3 times left, then 3 times right. Smoke obeys. Kind of. One curl breaks off and tries to make a break for the ceiling. You wave it back into formation with a stern flick. There we go. Here's your quirky fringe fact. Fans were sometimes believed to contain spirits of their own. Not powerful ones, more like assistants. Wind spirits, small and fluttery, who could carry words to the gods or tickle the ears of listeners to make them more receptive to your speech. You once heard of a fan that whispered to its owner when danger approached. Or maybe that noble was just very paranoid. Hard to say. You complete the ritual with a bow, pressing the fan's base to your forehead briefly. Then you lay it down again, feathers spread wide like wings at rest. The priest nods. Approval granted. The record keeper scribbles something, hopefully complimentary. You step outside into the moonlight, the city quiet now except for frogs and the occasional human cough. You walk along the temple path, the fan tucked under your arm, feeling lighter, cleaner, not just from ritual but from remembering. The fan has always been with you, in court, in festival, in flirtation, and now, in prayer. You pause by a sacred tree whose roots crack the stone path like lazy lightning. You raise the fan once, wave it gently through the silver night air. Not for show, not for politics, just to feel it again. That small breeze, that sacred rustle, that whisper of meaning in a language only feathers know. The next morning, you're sitting alone in the palace garden, bare feet in the dewy grass, fan resting on your lap, and a half-eaten bowl of squash stew beside you. The light's gentle this early, filtered through fronds and the tangled arms of a ceiba tree. Birds are being overly optimistic. You're not even mad about it. Your fan feels different today. Maybe it's the post-ritual energy clinging to it, or maybe you're just finally paying attention. You run your thumb along the carved wooden handle, smooth by use but still rich with detail. Tiny glyphs dance across the surface, forming looping patterns and figures that seem to shift depending on the light. You've never fully understood them, which is, frankly, hilarious, because this fan has been with you through ceremonies, court debates, and even one very awkward birthday dance. And yet the handle story remains a mystery. Time to fix that. You rise and make your way across the courtyard to the scribe's archive. It smells like damp bark paper, powdered pigments, and concentrated introversion. A handful of scribes are hunched over long scrolls, muttering to themselves and occasionally arguing about the correct way to draw a jaguar holding a calendar. You find the elder scribe, the one who smells like roasted chilies and once told you that your signature looked like a nervous snake. He eyes the fan as you hold it out, then adjusts his posture. This, to him, is treasure. He traces a finger along the glyphs, muttering, Imemba divine breath, something about a sky bundle. Here it is. He taps a section near the base. This part says gifted on the 3rd ton of sky rain's rain, so your fan's at least 3 generations old. Maybe more. You blink. You knew it was old, but that old. And this glyph? You ask, pointing to a swirl that looks like a butterfly with opinions. He chuckles. That's either the symbol for wind of renewal, or it's Balaam's property. Depends on the dialect. Could mean the fan belonged to a priest, or just that it was really windy that day. He shrugs. Historians still argue, as always. Of course they do. He invites you to sit while he unrolls a comparison chart, 30 different variations of the divine wind. Glyph across regions. You stare at it for a long time. Some are bold, others scribbly. One looks like a snake doing jazz hands. What you notice, though, is that your fan's markings are unusually refined. Sharp, balanced, not rushed. Whoever carved them cared. Maybe even believed the words would be read centuries later. And here you are. There's a pause while he consults another scroll, squinting in the low light. He says at last, this string of glyphs here, it's a poetic inscription. Feather breath, born of jungle shadow, voice for gods and kings alike. He glances up. Fancy way of saying this fan is extra. You laugh, but the words land somewhere deeper. Feather breath, voice for gods. The fan is more than ceremony. It's narrative. It's the autobiography of objects, and you've only just started reading. Here's your fringe tidbit. Some fans were used as record keepers. Instead of being written on, they were written with. Priests would use the tip of a carved fan handle to draw glyphs in soot or on soft clay, like a sacred stylus. You imagine your fan etching truth into wet stone. Then you remember how you once used it to poke a honey pot open during a boring feast and feel mildly guilty. The scribe hands the fan back with care. Yours is special, he says simply. It's meant to be read, not just seen. You walk slowly back to the garden, tracing the glyphs again with new eyes. You sit. The light's shifted, sharper now, slanting through the trees. You tilt the fan just so, and suddenly, there it is. The carvings catch the light, and the whole handle seems to shimmer with layers. Not magic, not exactly, but meaning, layered and carved and waiting. You wonder what stories you've added to it, your courtroom gestures, your festival flicks. That slightly embarrassing moment during the thunder ceremony, when you dropped it into a cenote and had to fish it out with a stick, all of it etched into its invisible memory. You raise the fan once more and wave it toward the east, not as a signal, but as a greeting. Maybe the wind will understand. Maybe the fan, read properly, will tell your story someday. For now, it speaks only in feathers and glyphs. You're standing just outside the edge of the royal encampment, where the air smells like sweat, dust, and tension. This is no palace court, no incense lit ritual chamber. This is the battlefield. Or, at least the patch of open earth that might soon become one. You hold your fan in one hand. Not open yet, not flashy. Just resting against your hip, feathers tucked. It's a strange sight here, amid sharpened spears, hide armor, and stone-bladed clubs, to see something so delicate. But the fan has a role to play, even here. The enemy's banners flutter in the near distance. Your side has built a temporary shrine nearby, barely more than a pile of carved stones, draped in maize silk. It's meant to bless the warriors. You've already walked past it twice, fan held high, as part of the ceremonial strut that says, "We're not worried. Look at this beautiful breeze accessory." totally not worried. See, the Maya didn't just charge into battle like wildcats. They performed ritual, symbol, order. War had choreography, and sometimes your fan was part of the dance. Now, to be clear, you're not going to be doing any spear throwing. Your job is symbolic, psychological, and, on occasion, slightly theatrical. You're here to remind everyone that the gods are watching and that your side has better taste in featherwork. You glance to your left. Another noble, slightly younger, twitches his fan open in a nervous wave. It's too fast, too wide. Rookie move. The warriors watching him will read that as doubt. You, however, raise your fan slowly. Just a quarter turn, enough to show the gleam of the obsidian inlay. Calm, calculated, gorgeous. Historians still argue whether fans were actually used to signal maneuvers in battle or simply to intimidate. Some glyphs imply they were tools for command, waved in sequences to direct troops. Others suggest they were more for the morale boost, like carrying a lucky charm that also made the enemy question your sanity. And it worked. Imagine being a warrior charging into combat and seeing your opponent's elite, calm, clean, fanning themselves like they're waiting for the cacao vendor. It messes with your head. You walk the perimeter now, passing warriors painting their faces with black clay and red ochre. Some nod respectfully. One even grins. Still fanning, noble, he asks. You grin back. Still fighting, warrior. It's a shared ritual of mutual nonsense. Neither of you envies the other's role, and both of you know how important the dance is. You pause near the war chief, who's hunched over a ground map drawn in ash and maize powder. He looks up and gestures toward a formation. You raise your fan and point. Not dramatically. Not like you're in a temple, but just enough to confirm. The gesture is recorded. The fan becomes a flag. You remember something your tutor once whispered years ago. When the fan points forward, the city walks behind it. You thought it was poetic nonsense at the time. Now it sounds more like a warning, quirky battlefield use. In some conflicts, nobles would wave their fans to create confusion, fluttering just before a fake retreat or tossing one into the air as a distraction. You once heard a story about a noble who flung his fan like a frisbee to mislead enemy scouts. They chased the fluttering feathers into an ambush. That fan was later retrieved and retired with honors. You open yours now slowly. The wind catches it. The feathers lift, shimmer, almost hum. A wave, not frantic, not dramatic, just enough to say, we're ready. Behind you, the drummers begin. Not the festival rhythm, this one's darker, hollow. It feels like someone is knocking on the underworld's door and daring it to answer. Your warriors rise. Weapons grip. Eyes narrow. The enemy is still on the far hill, watching. Waiting, and then it begins, not with a charge, but with smoke. Thick curls of resin, torch, burned and thrown by sling, fill the field. The first motion from your side is not a spear. It's your fan, slicing through the haze, directing a unit to circle left. The fan becomes a compass, a blade of command. You don't shout, you wave, twist, point. The warriors move as if pulled by the feathers themselves. For a few intense minutes, you forget where you are. You become gesture, wind, signal. The fan speaks when words fail. Then a whistle blast, a call to pull back. Not a rout, an ordered retreat. The plan all along. You raise the fan overhead and flick it once. The left flank stops. The right holds. Everyone freezes in eerie sync. Even the enemy hesitates. You lower the fan. Your warriors fall back, slow, controlled, laughing. The enemy, confused, doesn't pursue. Not yet. You've won the first move. Without blood. Without noise. Just smoke, feathers, and timing. You walk back into camp. Fan closed, proud and slightly winded. A warrior claps you on the back. You gonna write that in a scroll? He asks. No, you say, but I might carve it into the handle. The fan rests at your side now. Battle tool, theater prop, divine whisperer. In a world of noise and chaos, it remains your quiet, ridiculous, and profoundly powerful voice. The battlefield has gone quiet. Days have passed since the standoff, and while no final victory was declared, the stalemate was considered favorable. You're back in the palace now, or rather, in the upper chambers reserved for ritual rest and post-conflict reflection. You've changed out of your jaguar hide armor and into a cotton robe that smells faintly of burnt sage and ceremonial cocoa. You place the fan on the table in front of you, laying it gently upon a folded cloth of woven red and green thread. It doesn't look like a weapon now. It looks soft, elegant, harmless. But you remember the moment that enemy scout paused mid-run, just watching it shimmer through the smoke. You remember the way the war chief asked for your weapon. Before dinner, meaning your fan. It was returned with reverence, and still warm from his hands. And now it is time to prepare it for burial. No, not yours. Calm down. Today you accompany an elder noble to his tomb. He passed just yesterday, peacefully, while resting beneath a mural of birds and glyphs. You're not family, not quite a friend, but you've been chosen to carry one of his sacred items into the burial chamber. Of course, it's a fan. You hold it now, distinct from your own. It's heavier, older, the feathers a duller green and brown, with only hints of Quetzal iridescence left. Still, it carries weight, not just in material, but in memory. This fan waved during 5 temple ceremonies, 2 peace accords, and the famous maize tax debate of the mid-rainy season, which somehow lasted longer than a lunar cycle. You descend into the tomb slowly, accompanied by drummers tapping gently on turtle shells, and a chorus of low voices chanting a prayer so old nobody actually knows what it means anymore. It might be about wind or birds or really excellent soup. No one dares change it. Historians still argue over the exact ritual significance of fans in Maya burials. Some say they were meant to guide the spirit through Sabalba, the underworld. Others argue they were tools of prestige, reminders of who you were in life. One theory suggests the fan acts as a soul's compass, its feathers pointing toward the path of least spiritual resistance. Another says it's just really nice to have a breeze in the afterlife. The burial chamber is cool, the air still and respectful. Muraled walls tell the story of the noble's life, his victories, his lineage, his slightly exaggerated genealogy that traces back to a feathered serpent deity with questionable documentation. You kneel at the stone slab where his body lies, wrapped in fine cloth, face calm, lips slightly upturned. A priest nods to you. You raise the fan above your head, feathers spread, and lower it slowly, laying it across his chest. And here's the quirky part: the fan is laid facing outward. Not toward the noble's body, but away. Some believe this directs the spirit's breath outward, helping it leave the world of the living more easily. Others say it wards off jealous spirits that might try to hitch a ride. A handful of cacao beans are scattered over the cloth. A chunk of obsidian. A small bird skull painted gold. Standard fare for spiritual travel. You touch the fan one last time. It's cool, smooth, and impossibly still. You rise and step back as the priests begin sealing the tomb. Outside, the sun has climbed halfway up the sky. You squint, then pull out your own fan. A single flick. The breeze is soft but present. Later, over meal trays and gossiping servants, you find yourself staring at your fan longer than usual. You wonder who will place it beside you one day. Which young noble will carry it down a stone stair, tracing the echoes of your choices? Will they remember how you used it to diffuse an argument, or how you waved it in rhythm with a half-forgotten love song? You consider, briefly, carving a message into the base. Just a simple glyph. I was here. Or maybe something more poetic. This wind touched gods and lovers alike. Too dramatic. Probably. Quirky fact to lighten the mood: one noble's fan was discovered in a burial site with a small compartment inside the handle. Inside, 3 dried cacao beans and a folded piece of cloth with lipstick stains. Interpret as you will. You sleep that night with the fan beside your bed. Not on a stand, not on display. Just resting beside you like a quiet friend. You dream of feathers fluttering across the sky, guiding spirits like birds on pilgrimage. The noble is gone. His fan now still. Yours continues, at least for now. You're standing in a much colder room now, figuratively and literally. Gone is the jungle heat, the earthy incense, the warm murmur of your native city. In its place, stone walls, high windows, and a draft that smells like metal and unfamiliar soap. You're in the quarters of the colonial governor, summoned not as a noble, but as a curiosity. The Spaniards have arrived. You weren't there the day they landed, but the stories spread like wildfire. Tall men in shiny clothes riding beasts too large and too smug to be dear. They came with strange tools, louder than thunder sticks, and an unshakable sense of self-importance. And now, they're here in your capital, trying to look reverent as they trample over everything with their boots and their Bibles. You hold your fan. Not tightly. No, that would be obvious. Just enough to remember who you are. "Que bonito," says one of them, gesturing vaguely at the feathers. Very Aztec. You do not correct him. This is not an Aztec fan. It's Maya, obviously. The feathers are arranged in the Highland style, the base carved with specific glyphs of your dynasty. But to him, it's all the same. You suspect he'd call a crocodile a lizard if it wore a crown. He reaches for it. You pull back, politely, like someone shielding a candle from the wind. "Oh, sorry," he says, smiling like someone who believes they've invented courtesy. "Is it religious?" You nod once. That usually makes them back off. Still, the Spaniards have no real context for what the fan means. To them, it's exotic, decorative, a trophy to put on a wall or pass around at dinner parties. One governor even tried to wear one as a hat. He was politely removed from the hall by his own scribe, who insisted feathers were not compatible with powdered wigs. Historians still debate the degree to which colonial officials misunderstood indigenous symbols versus deliberately stripped them of meaning. In many cases, the fan was appropriated as an object of fascination, removed from ritual, placed on display, and named incorrectly in 5 different languages. In one document, a Maya feather fan is labeled "Fly Swatter of the Great Jaguar Shaman." No one even used the word shaman back then. Your fan is eventually taken from you, not forcibly, but for safekeeping. It's placed in the governor's chamber, hung beside a poorly drawn map and a cracked mirror. You visit it once, a few weeks later. The feathers are wilting. The handle is dusty. A small wine stain marks the edge of the cloth it rests on. You clench your jaw, not because of the disrespect, but because the fan looks like it misses home. Quirky detail. One colonial journal describes a noble using a fan to create wind magic that bewitched 3 Spaniards into walking into a cactus. You know the real story. He simply fanned dramatically while pointing, and they were too busy laughing to watch their step. Not magic, just timing. Eventually, the governor gifts your fan to a visiting bishop, who claims it reminds him of angel wings. That bishop, a well-meaning man with more curiosity than cultural awareness, carries it with him to the coast, where he uses it to stir his cocoa, which he insists on calling spiced water. It's placed on a boat, crosses the sea, ends up in a European collection, where it's labeled feather implement of the Aztecian Sun King, close enough for their purposes. And you fashion a new one, not because the old one is replaceable. It isn't, but because the wind still needs a voice. The ceremonies still need a breath. The people still look to you when the heat rises or the courtroom falls silent. So you begin again. Not to forget, but to remember differently. You choose new feathers, ones from your region, ones that speak of your story. The glyphs you carve this time are simpler, symbols that can't be twisted, or at least can't be misunderstood without obvious effort. The fan becomes your quiet protest, and it's beautiful. You fan yourself as you watch the Spaniards try to pronounce your city's name. You fan yourself when they ask if you worship birds. You fan yourself when they assume your silence is ignorance, never once realizing you're listening more than they ever could. The wind still listens to you, even if they don't. Centuries slip by like smoke through fingers. Time, always the trickster, does its work. Your city fades into ruin, your language is pressed into ink and reshaped by other tongues, and your descendants scatter across valleys and classrooms and nations. But your fan, oh, your beautiful fan, it survives. Sort of. It ends up in a museum, not a fancy one, at least not at first. A dusty provincial collection, tucked behind armor from the wrong continent, and a taxidermied squirrel with questionable historical value. It rests inside a glass box, labeled Aztec Fleischwater, 16th century. Prob, you would laugh if it weren't so tragic. A Fleischwater. Never mind that the feathers are arranged in sacred symmetry, the obsidian handle carved with precise glyphs invoking sky and fire. Never mind that it's easily twice the size of any actual Fleischwater, and made of materials that would disintegrate in direct sun, let alone mosquito combat. But no, the label sticks. People pass it every day without looking. School children press their faces to the glass, then move on to the pirate cannons and the medieval torture exhibit. Adults read the placard, maybe chuckle. Can you imagine swatting flies with that thing? You, from whatever celestial perch you now occupy, can only sigh. Historians still argue over this specific fan's provenance. Some say it originated in Tycho. Others argue for Palenque, based on the swirling glyphs that match a mural fragment uncovered in 1894. One stubborn German scholar insists it's from the Zapotec, citing a single curling motif on the handle that vaguely resembles a snail. No one agrees. And so the label remains vague and embarrassing. It stays like this for decades. Then, finally, a shift. A visiting scholar, young and sleep-deprived, notices something odd. She's not from the museum. She's working on a thesis about ceremonial wind symbols in pre-Columbian societies. She stops in front of the case, squints at the handle, and gasps so loudly that a nearby child drops their plastic stegosaurus. She sees the glyphs. Not just sees them, reads them. She snaps a photo. Then another. Then she starts muttering in a blend of English, Spanish, and something older. "This isn't a Fleischwater," she says, almost offended. "It's a fan of divine breath, yes." Finally, she writes a paper. Then another. The museum staff, to their credit, listen. The display is re-examined. The label is replaced. Now it reads, Maya ceremonial feather fan, late classic period c. 700 CE Quetzalmacaw and heron feathers, obsidian cedar, believed to have belonged to a noble of Tikal, or a neighboring city, state. Used in rituals, court ceremonies, and possibly warfare as a signal device. Much better. Quirky footnote for a brief moment in the 1980s. The fan was part of a traveling exhibit titled Feathers and Fables, Myths of the Americas. It was displayed beside a clay whistle and a mistranslated codex fragment that claimed humans once married trees. The fan received the fewest comments on the tour, except in one town, where a local poet insisted it was whispering to him. He was kindly escorted out. Now, under better lighting, the fan glows again. Visitors pause, curious. Children ask questions. Some even sketch it. A tour guide, more enthusiastic than accurate, claims it once summoned a god of wind and romance. You'll allow it. Your fan, for all its long exile, is finally seen again. And with each passing day, more people learn about the feathers, about the wind, about you. The museum shop starts selling tiny replicas, feather bookmarks, stylized posters. One coffee mug reads, I came, I saw, I fanned. You're not sure how you feel about that one, but at least they're trying. You wonder if somewhere, in some room, another old fan still waits to be rediscovered. Labeled wrong. Misunderstood. Holding stories that only wind and memory remember. Maybe. Someday, someone else will stop. Look. Listen. Because feathers don't forget. They just wait. The rediscovery of your fan sparks more than just academic interest. It becomes, unexpectedly, a trend. Not a fashion trend, though that comes later, but a ripple across art, language, and cultural identity. People begin to care again, not just about the object, but about what it meant, about what you meant. Across the Maya-speaking world, descendants of the cities, once filled with fans and feathers, begin to reclaim the story. Local historians dig up oral traditions. Elders recount childhood tales of fans used in blessings and curses, in weddings and weather rituals. And someone, somewhere, finds another fan. In a private collection, stuffed between colonial rosaries and a coconut monkey carving. This one's tattered, but the bones of it are familiar cedar handle, chipped obsidian, and a single, still vibrant feather of jungle green. And just like that, the replicas begin. Modern artisans in Guatemala and southern Mexico start crafting fans in the old ways, or as close to them as possible. They consult codices. They talk to elders. They climb trees. They apologize to birds. They make offerings. The fans are not mass-produced. They are slow art, part history, part devotion. Some are ceremonial. Some are decorative. A few are surprisingly political, because in rediscovering the fan, people also rediscover its message: dignity without noise, protest through elegance, identity wrapped in feathers. You, were you alive, would be deeply smug. One artisan begins making fans with synthetic feathers, ethically sourced, eco-friendly, and bright as a festival morning. Another, cheekier still, inserts a tiny Bluetooth speaker into the handle so the fan can sing. The song, a modern beat infused with reed flute samples and thunder drum overlays. It goes unexpectedly viral. Historians still debate whether this modern feather revival accurately reflects ancient practices or merely reinterprets them through a 21st century lens. Predictably, some purists are appalled. That's not a real Maya fan, they say, pointing at a neon pink one with glitter edges and a stylized jaguar paw stencil. But others shrug. It breathes. They reply, that's what matters. And here's a quirky tale. You'd love a schoolteacher in Chiapas starts using a small feather fan in class. Every time her students grow too noisy, she lifts it silently. Within seconds, the room quiets. Not because it's threatening, because it's familiar, like something sacred. Like a whisper of long memory echoing from somewhere they didn't even know existed. The fan, it seems, still works. Museums update their plaques. Documentaries are made. A young novelist writes an entire magical realist epic centered around a fan that contains the wind of a forgotten god. It's nominated for several awards. You'd roll your eyes at the third act, where the fan literally flies, but you'd secretly love it. Soon, there are fan dances in cultural festivals. Politicians are gifted fans instead of plaques. Even one cautious archaeologist, during a panel discussion, waves a replica fan mid-speech to illustrate a point. The audience cheers. She blushes and mutters, "It really does feel powerful." Your fan, the original, remains in its museum case, but now under better lights, with rotating exhibits and an interactive screen that lets visitors. Fan, digital incense toward virtual gods. Kids love it. Scholars approve. Spirits, presumably tolerate it. What matters is the motion. That slow arc. That quiet breath. That moment when a gesture replaces a shout. Because the fan is no longer just a relic. It's a reawakening. And maybe, just maybe, when someone waves one late at night, by candlelight or firelight or moonlight, the air remembers. The wind pauses. The past leans in just a little closer. And the feathers flutter, not just with movement, but with meaning. The night is quiet again, just like it was in the beginning. You sit beneath a waxing moon on a woven mat near the edge of the old city, or what's left of it. The plaza stones are half swallowed by grass, the temple stairs worn soft by time and rain. Jungle noises rise in the distance. Frogs, crickets, the occasional nocturnal bird calling to no one in particular. Your fan rests beside you, open. The feathers glimmer faintly, catching moonlight in quiet pulses. You don't wave it now. You just let it sit there, alive in its stillness. You've taken this fan everywhere, across stone courts, into battle smoke, through laughter and loss, ceremony and silence. And now you sit with it one last time. It's old. So are you. The obsidian on the handle is dulled at the corners. Some of the feathers are loose, though none have fallen. You don't repair it. Not this time. Some things should age honestly. You take a breath. The air is warm, but not heavy. The kind of breeze that doesn't come from wind, but from memory. A hush that holds you gently, like the quiet between sentences. You remember the rituals, chanting priests and spiraling smoke. You remember the courtroom, that noble's face, when your fan dipped just so. You remember flirtations by torchlight, fingers brushing feathers, and you remember war? Not violence, not pain. But that strange moment when a wave of your fan stopped a flank from breaking. All of that is inside this fan. You don't know who will hold it next. Maybe no one. Maybe it will be buried with you, placed gently across your chest by someone who knows what it meant. Or maybe it will travel again, passed down, its stories whispered one wave at a time. Or perhaps it will be left behind, nestled in a stone chamber, waiting for light and footsteps and curiosity. Historians still argue what happens to objects touched by belief. Do they keep something of us? A sliver of thought? A breath? Or do they simply outlast us, blank and waiting for new hands? You lie back slowly, hands folded over your chest, the fan to your side. The stars shift, lazy and luminous. Somewhere, far off, a jaguar calls once and is answered. The fan's feathers ripple gently in a breeze you don't feel. And then, the wind down begins. The jungle softens into hums and hushes. The world stretches out, slower, wider, deeper. The air thickens, not with heat, but with calm. The fan beside you sighs once, as if releasing a final breath. Your muscles loosen. The ground beneath you cradles every part of you with the tenderness of centuries. Your thoughts no longer walk. They drift. Slow spirals. Gentle tides. Feathers in slow descent. You think of cool stone and sacred smoke. Of laughter shared in shadows. Of words never spoken but always understood. You are no longer noble, no longer needed. Just here. Quiet. Hole in the fan. It stays open, facing the stars. Not because it has to, but because the wind might still be listening. Now, the city sleeps. The stones, the feathers, the glyphs, all slip beneath the surface of time. No footsteps echo across the plazas. No drums. No chanting. Just the soft, eternal hush of breath and earth and distant memory. The fan rests where you left it. No longer a symbol. No longer a tool. Just an object infused with patience. A whisper coiled in cedar and color. It catches the faintest breeze. Maybe real, maybe imagined. And shivers like a bird dreaming of sky. You are not walking now. You are not thinking. You are floating. Thoughts slow to the pace of clouds drifting across the canopy. Everything softens. You are part of this stillness. The jungle, the city, the fan, and you, woven together in one long, quiet exhale. And in this dream space, where nothing is rushed and nothing is expected, you are safe. No court debates, no rituals, no performances. Just the steady rhythm of a heartbeat and the gentle brush of a feather. You let go. Not of memory, but of motion. You release your grip on the day's meaning. The air cools around your fingers. Your breath deepens. You drift, lighter than ever. No need to understand everything. No need to hold on. Just be. Let the feathers settle. Let the wind take over. Let sleep carry you.